And what steps at TUG taken to recoup what was stolen from those 297 RT employees?
The trade union group, or indeed individual unions, will represent members who come to us and seek representation. That's what we do, Deputy McGrath. I have represented members who secured employment. I have represented members who secure retrospection. SIPTU have done the same, and we will continue to do the same.
But that's an astounding amount of 297, and they were treated appallingly, literally dismissed. And RTE reclassified employees have been forced into yellow pack contracts where terms and conditions are far less than if they had been legally classified as employees in the first instance. And how can you, the TUG, stand over such contracts?
I will again, Chair, suggest that it is appropriate that these are questions directed to the employer. The TUG has not entered into agreements on individual contracts. We don't have that power. These are contracts because this is not a collective process. What we agreed was a process. There was a review. There were contracts there was an appeals process, as I said earlier, chaired by a senior counsel. There was another process in relation to retrospection, and anyone who was not happy with that outcome is free to go to a third party. We are extremely unhappy, not just with this process, but with the whole way in which RTE subsequently has responded to positive scope determinations. But what I am surprised at is the apparent belief on the part of some members of this committee that we have extraordinary powers as trade union representatives. We are limited by the law of the land. We are limited by what the law allows us to do, and we are limited by contracts. So this notion that somehow we have sat back, we haven't done that. And there are cases ongoing, and we don't comment on individual cases. There are cases ongoing. Equally, and I've said it earlier, that when you look at those large figures, there were people who were offered contracts and declined them. So when you talk about the decline, people being let go, remember there were some people, a small number, but there are some people who didn't want to be an employee, who actually preferred a contract for service, for whatever reason. So within that, there are people, so it's not that they were all dismissed, some people would actually have decided that they actually wanted to go. Equally, RTE are wrong in suggesting that people would have chosen a contract for service, because the reality is they had no choice. So this is extraordinarily complex, and I think what would be useful for the committee is to hear from the decision makers who offered those contracts.
Could you give a percentage of what numbers you think there of those 297 that might have decided themselves that they didn't want?
No, I don't have that, because one of the issues which you have to realise is that as trade unions, when we were dealing with the Evershed process, we actually were dealing that with our hands behind our back, because we didn't have a list of people who were on bogus self-employed contracts. We have no access to that information. The only time that we, as unions, knew who was on that list is if people came to us individually. Many people on those lists actually may not be union members at all. By definition, some of them would have had contact with us. I will stand over how we represent people who approached us, but some of them would not have approached us, and RTE felt that they were unable, under the Data Protection Act, to give us lists. And equally, we do not know who was covered by the Evershed process. In other words, we don't have the list, because Evershed was an independent legal review. They produced the names, RTE is the contract.
And the way you're talking, you think there's two silos. You're working in a silo that you didn't know what was going on, like a big wall between you and the management. Did you not have representation on the board? It's staff.
I never used the word silo. That's your word. Yeah. I said that in relation to this process, RTE were bound by, or Troop Health have bound by data protection. There is an elected board member, of course, but they don't deal with, no more than this committee, they don't deal with day-to-day HR issues. But the issue of bogus self-employment was consistently raised at board level over many, many years by a number of members of the RTE authority, including Patricia King during her tenure on it. This is an issue that goes back over many, many years. It has come to focus now, and I'm glad it has, but this isn't a new issue.
Could I ask then, I'm sure you're aware that misclassification of workers as bogus self-employed is a criminal offence under the Social Welfare Consolidation Act 2005. Were you aware of that, or are you aware of that?
I see you read the same tweets as me.
Excuse me.
The reality...
I don't read any tweets. I never tweeted in my life, so if you want to be acting to tweet now, you can, but I never tweeted. I didn't read any tweets. I'm not told what to say either by anybody.
I am clearly aware, and all trade union officials are aware of the law of the land. And in fact, that is why we insisted that there should be an appeal in relation to misclassification for people who felt that they should be classified. And that's why we accepted the nomination of Peter Ward, Senior Counsel, who I think probably was aware that misclassification is illegal.
But I mean, an appeal process, surely you should be jumping up and down looking for prosecutions. The law has been flouted hundreds and thousands of times on an ongoing basis. And you want to be part of that institution and are part of it. I've said from the outset that the fraud squad should be brought into RT and CAB, and it most certainly is. Why aren't you looking for the fraud squad to be brought in to where the 2005 Consolidation Act has been broken, continually broken?
In my experience, Deputy, jumping up and down gets headlines, but in industrial relations it doesn't actually.
You haven't got up at all. You have to say plenty. And I'm hearing you often on radio, and I had more respect for you than I have today because you're being smart. Why? You have a responsibility to the Yellow Pack workers, and you're not the only union throughout the public service that have allowed Yellow Pack workers to be introduced everywhere. Made cosy deals because you deal with governments and departments, and to help with the Dína Beaga, the small people. So I'm asking you now, what action did you take to secure and ensure that the Gardaí investigated it? It's illegality at a large scale. It's disgusting. I'm as an employer, if I did it, I'd be frozen by the revenue and I'd be in jail if I didn't pay the money. RT told us they had 50 million away in contingency fund to deal with revenue. That is illegal. No other employer in the country gets that kind of preference. So it's time there was a big shake-up out there, both union side and the cabal that run it, because you're all part of the same cabal as far as I'm concerned. What did you do? What did you do about having those people prosecuted? The powers that be?
Deputy, I do. Sorry, Deputy. I just I'm very conscious in this that everyone has a right to fair process.
Of course.
And if I want us to focus on some of the evidence, the facts where there are allegations of criminal wrongdoing.
Yes, it is criminal.
You just those views that you're expressed, they're your own views, not those of the committee.
Oh, I mean, they've accepted. I think Mr. Dooley has accepted that that it wasn't right. It's not right.
Well,
under the 2005 Consolidation Act, it's a criminal offence to have misrepresented.
I appreciate you're making an allegation, but there's a process there that just needs to be followed. And I'm just asking you to be careful in your questioning.
That's why I'm asking the good people here, what action are they taking, strenuous action, to represent the people who have been misclassified by their employer and been punished, and the Yellow Pack workers that were trucked out the door. He said some weren't trade union reps. He couldn't tell me how many went voluntary. So there's a lot of work to be done out there on your side as well. So I'm asking, what action have you taken? Anybody can answer.
Definitely. Just
demanding that this issue be investigated. But for the whistleblower, we wouldn't know anything about it.
Well, Deputy, if you don't know about it, it's just simply because you haven't been following it. And at the earlier stage of this hearing, I outlined the fact that 20 years ago, we were responsible for a review conducted by good bodies which ended the process of bogus self-employment. That then crept in again, and we raised it, and the trade union movement raised it through the social partnership, not just in the context of RTE, but bogus self-employment is, I have no problem. One of the issues that we raised was the failure of government consistently to provide sufficient resources to scope, to go out into media organisations, to go out onto building sites. Scope are grossly underfunded, and we raised that. The current issue was first raised by the trade union group in 2007, 2008. We've been raising that consistently. And on the 31st of January 2019, I raised it in this room. This is an issue that we have been dealing with consistently. We have been, the Evershed review directly arose as a result of trade union group. The Director General of RTE herself has admitted and said in evidence to this committee when she was turning up that actually the first meeting she attended with the trade union group, the first item on the agenda was bogus self-employment. The first meeting that the Director of HR turned up at, the first item on the agenda was bogus self-employment.
And why has there been no prosecution, so? Why has the law been flouted openly? And I've seen RT investigations, and I admire a lot of the work they do, but I've seen them go down to Tipperary and punish a decent company and mislead and put a secret camera into something and totally blackguard a businessman who's now since dead. And you can do all this in the name of honesty and transparency and wrong that company, grievously wronged them, but they've no comeback. Once it goes out there on national TV, you can't kill a lie. And it was like, but you want to do that to you want to be judge of other business people and other people out there, but yet this rotten system continues. And I call it rotten and I mean rotten. That's what it is.
I think you might not be aware that Philip Boucher Hayes actually did a series on drive time and on bogus self-employment. One programme in particular.
Talking about it within RTE.
Yes, absolutely, that is RTE. It's on
He's an insider. He works for RTE. That answers my question. The cat is minding the cream. For God's sake, he's an insider.
The point I was making...
Do you have a final question?